You're wasting your life on computer games. My name is Brandon Keene. I'm 27 years old and my father just called my $60 million company Computer Games. We were sitting in the mahogany-lined conference room at Keene & Sons Law Group in downtown Chicago, surrounded by portraits of 3 generations of Keene attorneys. The same room where my grandfather had built his practice. The same room where my father expected me to carry on the family legacy. I've been dodging this conversation for months. Every Sunday dinner, every family gathering, every time I walked into this building, the weight of expectation pressed down on me like a physical thing. Philip Keene didn't just want me to join the firm. He needed me too. The nameplate on his desk read, Philip Keene, Senior Partner, but what he really wanted was for mine to read Brandon Keene, Junior Partner by Christmas. The firm needs young blood, he said, straightening his navy tie. Fresh perspective. You've got the law degree. You passed the bar. What more do you need? What I needed was for him to understand that Trijacory Systems wasn't a hobby. While he was preparing briefs for corporate mergers, I was building back-end infrastructure that automated those same processes. While he was billing clients $300 an hour to review contracts, my software was scanning thousands of documents in minutes. But explaining that to Philip Keene was like explaining color to someone who'd only ever seen black and white. I appreciate the offer, Dad, but I've got something else going. He leaned back in his leather chair, the same one his father had used. Something else. Brandon, you're 27. This isn't the time for hobbies. This is the time to build a career, a real career. I could have told him about the Series B funding round that closed 3 days ago. Could have mentioned the acquisition offer sitting in my inbox from a cloud automation firm in Austin. Could have explained that Trijacory's back-end solutions were already being used by Fortune 500 companies he'd probably heard of. Instead, I just sat there watching him gesture at the law degrees on the wall like they were battle standards. My mother, Donna, walked in with coffee, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor. She'd been the firm's bookkeeper before she married my father, back when Keene & Sons was just Keene and wishful thinking. Now, she managed the family's investments and made sure everyone knew their place in the hierarchy. "Are you boys talking about Brandon's future?" she asked, setting down the coffee service. "We're trying to," Philip said. "Your son seems to think coding is more important than continuing the family business." The way he said coding made it sound like I was selling drugs. I took a sip of coffee and tasted disappointment. Something shifted in that moment. Not anger, just clarity. I'd been building Trijacory since my second year of law school. Started as a side project to automate document review for a solo practitioner who couldn't afford junior associates. Basic stuff at first, optical character recognition, keyword flagging, simple pattern matching. But the more I worked on it, the more I realized how broken the entire system was. Law firms were paying armies of first-year associates to do work that software could handle better, faster, and cheaper. Corporate clients were getting billed thousands of dollars for processes that could be automated. The whole industry was running on inefficiency and everyone was too comfortable to change. So I changed it for them. Trijacory started small. A few solo practitioners, then small firms, then mid-sized corporate clients who needed back-end solutions for contract management. By my third year of law school, I was making more money from monthly software licenses than most junior associates made in a year. By graduation, I had 12 full-time employees and office space in the West Loop. My parents knew I was doing computer work on the side. They figured it was a phase, something to keep me busy until I came to my senses and joined the family firm. They'd seen the new apartment, the upgraded car, the fact that I wasn't asking for money anymore. But in their minds, none of that was real wealth. Real wealth came from billable hours and partnership tracks and your name on the door. The warning signs had been there for months. Philip would introduce me to clients as my son, the future lawyer, even though I'd never expressed interest in practicing law. Dana would make comments about how nice it was that I had a little business to play with before getting serious about my career. Family friends would ask when I was joining the firm and my parents would answer for me. Last month, Philip had business cards printed. Brandon Keene, associate attorney, handed them to me like it was a done deal. Just in case you change your mind, he'd said. I put them in my desk drawer and never looked at them again. The real problem wasn't that they didn't understand technology. The real problem was that they couldn't conceive of success that didn't look like their success. In their world, you wore suits, carried briefcases, and measured your worth in billable hours. You built something that would last, something you could pass down to your children. They didn't understand that I was building something bigger than they'd ever imagined. Rajakhori wasn't just a law firm automation tool anymore. We'd expanded into healthcare, finance, logistics, any industry that dealt with complex document workflows. We had a solution. The software was handling millions of transactions every day, processing contracts worth billions of dollars. But none of that mattered if it didn't fit their definition of respectable work. The moment everything changed was when Philip handed me the partnership agreement. We were back in his office 3 weeks after our initial conversation. He'd called it a strategy meeting, but I could see the thick document folder on his desk from across the room. Dana was there too, sitting in the client chair like this was some kind of intervention. "We've been thinking about your future," Philip said, sliding the folder across his desk. "And we've decided to accelerate the timeline." I opened the folder and saw my name at the top of a junior partnership agreement. Not an offer, not a proposal, an agreement with signature lines and effective dates already filled in. "We're prepared to bring you in as a junior partner immediately," Dana said. "No associate years, no proving yourself. You'd start with a 15% stake in full benefits. 15% of Keen & Sons was worth maybe $2 million. Good money by most standards, more than most people my age would ever see. But I was sitting on a company valued at $60 million, and they were offering me what felt like pocket change. "This is generous," I said carefully. "It's more than generous," Philip replied. "It's family." That's when I understood. This wasn't about my future. This was about their fear. They built something they were proud of, something that meant everything to them, and they were terrified it would die with them. The partnership offer wasn't an opportunity. It was a life preserver. I looked at the signature line and realized I was at a crossroads. I could sign the papers, take the partnership, and spend the next 30 years of my life building someone else's dream. Or I could walk away and build my own. "I need some time to think about this," I said. "What's to think about?" Dana asked. "This is everything we've worked for, everything your grandfather worked for. I understand that, but I need to consider all my options." Philip's face hardened. "What options?" "Brandon, you're 27 years old. You have a law degree from Northwestern. You passed the Illinois bar. What other options could you possibly have?" I closed the folder and slid it back across his desk. "I'll let you know tomorrow." That night, I sat in my apartment looking at 2 emails. One was the partnership agreement Philip had sent to my personal account with a note that said, "Hope you make the right choice." The other was from Austin, confirming the final details of Ridgecore's acquisition. $60 million split between me and my 4 co-founders, with me holding the majority stake. I didn't sleep that night, but by morning, I knew exactly what I was going to do. The next evening, I drove to my parents' house in Wetka for what I knew would be our last family dinner for a while. Dana had made pot roast, my supposed favorite, and Philip had opened a bottle of wine that probably cost more than most people's mortgage payments. They were celebrating something that hadn't happened yet. "So," Philip said, cutting into his meat, "have you had a chance to review the partnership documents?" "I have," and Dana leaned forward, her eyes bright with anticipation. I set down my fork and looked at both of them. "I'm not going to join the firm." The silence stretched out like a held breath. Philip's knife stopped moving. Dana's wine glass froze halfway to her lips. "I'm sorry," Philip said. "I'm not joining Keen & Sons. I appreciate the offer, but I'm going to continue building my own company." Philip's face went through several expressions before settling on something between disbelief and anger. "Your own company? Brandon, you're talking about a hobby, a side project. This is a career we're offering you. Rajakhori isn't a hobby, Dad. We've got 43 employees. We're processing documents for clients in 12 states. Last month, we handled contract reviews worth over $200 million. "Contract reviews?" Dana's voice was sharp. "You're doing paralegal work. We're automating legal processes, making them faster, more accurate, more cost-effective. We're changing how the entire industry operates." Philip stood up from the table, his chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "You're automating jobs. You're putting people out of work. Do you understand that? You're destroying the profession your family built. I'm improving it. You're 27 years old." His voice echoed through the dining room. "You think you know better than 3 generations of attorneys. You think your computer games are more important than everything we've built?" That's when something inside me snapped. Not into anger, but into absolute clarity. "You want to know what I think?" I stood up too, my napkin falling to the floor. "I think you're scared. I think you know the industry is changing, and instead of adapting, you'd rather pretend it's not happening. How dare you? I think you've been billing clients for work that could be done by software for years and you know it's wrong, but you can't stop because your whole business model depends on inefficiency." Dana slammed her hand on the table. "That's enough." And I think I continued, my voice steady, "that you're not offering me a partnership because you believe in me. You're offering it because you're desperate." The words hung in the air like smoke. Philip's face had gone white. "Get out," he said quietly. "Philip," Dana started. "Get out of my house." His voice was deadly calm. "If you think so little of everything we've built, if you think we're frauds and failures, then you're not welcome here." I picked up my jacket from the back of my chair. "I didn't say you were frauds. You said worse. You said we were obsolete." "No, Dad. I said you were scared." Philip walked to the front door and held it open. "When you're ready to apologize, when you're ready to stop playing with computers and start building a real life, you know where to find us." I walked past him into the cold Chicago evening. Behind me, I heard Dana crying. "You're a disgrace," Philip called after me. "A disgrace to this family and everything we stand for." I turned around one last time. "I'm sorry you feel that way." But I wasn't sorry. As I drove back to my apartment, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Relief. The conversation I'd been dreading for years was finally over. And the worst part was behind me. What they didn't know was that the acquisition papers were already signed. What they didn't know was that I'd been planning this moment since I was 22 years old. What they didn't know was that in 18 hours I'd be on a plane to Colorado. I spent that night in my West Loop office. Not because I had work to do, but because I needed to think. The Rajakouri team had gone home hours ago, leaving behind the quiet hum of servers and the blue glow of monitoring screens. This was where I'd built everything that mattered to me. This was where I'd proven that my parents were wrong. The acquisition by Cloud Vault Systems had been in the works for 8 months. Not because Rajakouri was struggling, but because we'd grown beyond what I could manage alone. Cloud Vault specialized in enterprise backend solutions, and they needed our document processing technology to complete their automation suite. The deal gave them our software and our team. It gave me enough money to never worry about anything again. $60 million. After taxes and employee bonuses, my share came to $38 million. I'd been sitting on that number for 3 days trying to figure out how to tell my parents. Part of me had hoped they'd be proud. Part of me had imagined Philip's face when I explained that his son's computer games were worth more than Keen & Sons had generated in its entire 70-year history. But the conversation at dinner had shown me the truth. It wouldn't have mattered if Ridge was worth $6 million or $600 million. In their minds, I'd chosen the wrong path, and no amount of money would change that. My phone buzzed with a text from my sister Jessica, who lived in Seattle with her investment banker husband. Dad called, said, "You had a fight. Are you okay?" I typed back, "I'm fine. Just family stuff. Want to talk about it?" "Not really, but thanks." Jessica was the golden child who'd done everything right. MBA from Wharton. Married a man Philip approved of. Lived in a house that looked like it belonged in a magazine. She'd never questioned the family expectations because she'd never wanted anything different. I envied her for that sometimes. Another text came in, this one from my business partner, Trevor. Cloud Vault confirmed the wire transfer. Money hits the accounts tomorrow morning. Congratulations, millionaire. I stared at that message for a long time. Tomorrow morning, I'd officially be worth more money than I could spend in a lifetime. Tomorrow morning, Rajakhori would belong to someone else, and I'd be free to do whatever I wanted. The irony wasn't lost on me. My parents had spent the evening telling me I was throwing my life away, and in 12 hours I'd have more financial freedom than they'd ever dreamed of. I opened my laptop and started browsing real estate websites. Not because I needed to buy anything, but because I could. I looked at houses in California, condos in Manhattan, estates in the Hamptons. But what caught my attention was a ski lodge in Aspen. 5 bedrooms, 6 bathrooms, ski in, ski out, access to Snowmass Mountain, the kind of place I'd fantasized about owning since college. The listing price was $2.8 million. I called the realtor. "Mr. Keene, it's almost midnight. I know. I'm interested in the Snowmass property, the lodge on El Camp Circle. That's a beautiful property. Would you like to schedule a showing? I'd like to make an offer without seeing it. I've seen the photos. $2.5 million cash, closing in 2 weeks." There was a pause. Let me make some calls. An hour later, I owned a house in Colorado. Just like that. No mortgage applications, no financial reviews, no waiting for approval. I wanted it, so I bought it. That's when I understood what real freedom felt like. The next morning, I packed 2 suitcases and drove to O'Hare. My flight to Denver left at 11 o'clock a.m., and I'd arranged for a car service to drive me up to Aspen. By sunset, I'd be in my new house, watching snow fall on mountains I now owned a piece of. I didn't call my parents, didn't text Jessica, didn't tell anyone where I was going or when I'd be back. For the first time in my adult life, I disappeared completely. The lodge was everything the photos had promised. Timber frame construction, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the ski runs, a stone fireplace big enough to stand in. The previous owner had left it furnished, so I had everything I needed. Leather couches, king-size beds, a kitchen stocked with expensive appliances I'd never use. But what I loved most was the silence. No phone calls about billable hours, no conversations about partnership tracks, no pressure to be anyone other than exactly who I was. I spent the first week skiing every day and reading every night. I'd brought a stack of books I'd been meaning to get to for years, plus my laptop in case I got bored. But mostly, I just existed. Woke up when I felt like it. Went to bed when I was tired. Ate whatever sounded good. By the second week, I was starting to think about what came next. The Cloud Vault deal included a 2-year consulting agreement, but that was mostly to keep our team stable during the transition. I could work as much or as little as I wanted. On day 10, Trevor called. "How's Mountain Man life treating you?" "Can't complain." "How's the transition going?" "Smooth." Cloud Vault's integration team knows what they're doing. Most of the staff is staying on, and they're already talking about expanding the Chicago office. Good. That was always the plan. Brandon, can I ask you something? Why didn't you tell anyone how big this was? I mean, your parents, your family. $60 million isn't exactly pocket change. I looked out at the snow-covered peaks surrounding my lodge because it wouldn't have changed anything. They don't care about the money. They care about control. Still, when this hits the business press, they're going to find out anyway. That was true. The acquisition hadn't been announced yet, but it would be soon. Cloud Vault was a publicly traded company, and deals this size required SEC filings. Within a few weeks, anyone who cared to look would know exactly how much Brandon Keene's computer games had been worth. Let them find out with everyone else. I said, "Your call. But when they do, you might want to have your phone turned on." After we hung up, I sat by the fireplace thinking about what Trevor had said. My parents would find out eventually. Jessica would probably call. Philip might even swallow his pride enough to reach out, but by then it would be too late for apologies or partnership offers. By then, I'd be exactly where I wanted to be. Far enough away to see everything clearly, wealthy enough to never need their approval, and free enough to build whatever came next. I opened my laptop and started sketching out ideas for my next company. Something bigger than Rajakhori. Something that would change entire industries instead of just improving them. Outside, snow began falling again, and I realized I'd never been happier to be anywhere in my life. 5 weeks after I'd left Chicago, Trevor's prediction came true. The Cloud Vault acquisition hit the Chicago Tribune business section on a Tuesday morning, complete with my photograph in a headline that read, "Local tech founder sells startup for $60 million. I was having coffee on my deck, watching skiers navigate the morning runs when my phone started buzzing. Jessica called first. "Brandon, what the hell? $60 million. Are you serious?" "Morning to you, too, Jess. Don't morning me. Dad and Mom are freaking out. Someone at the grocery store showed them the newspaper. Mom called me crying." "Crying about what?" "About how they had no idea. About how they spent weeks trying to convince you to take a junior partnership while you were sitting on this, Brandon. They feel like idiots." I sipped my coffee and watched the red-tailed hawks circle above the tree line. "They should feel like idiots. That's not fair, isn't it? They called my life's work computer games. They said I was a disgrace. They threw me out of their house." Jessica was quiet for a moment. "Where are you?" "Colorado." "Are you coming back eventually?" "Brandon, they want to apologize." "Do they? Or do they want to make sure they're still in the will?" That was harsh, but it was also true. My parents had spent years dismissing everything I'd built. And now that they knew it was worth more than their entire family legacy, suddenly they wanted to talk. My phone buzzed with another call. "Philip Keene, I have to go, Jess." "Answer it, please." I let it go to voicemail. Then I turned off my phone and went skiing. 2 months later, I flew back to Chicago. Not because I missed it, but because I had business to finish. Cloud Vault wanted me to consult on their next acquisition, and I needed to check on my team's transition. I met Trevor for lunch at a place downtown, 6 blocks from where Keene & Sons had their offices. The irony wasn't lost on me. "How are things with your family?" he asked. "Complicated. Have you talked to them?" Jessica keeps trying to play mediator. "My parents sent a letter to my old apartment. Very formal, very legal. Basically, an apology that read like a settlement offer. Are you going to respond?" "I don't know. Maybe." The truth was, I understood why they'd reacted the way they did. In their world, success looked like partnerships and corner offices and your name on the door. They couldn't have imagined that their son would build something bigger than anything they'd ever dreamed of. But understanding didn't mean forgiving. After lunch, I drove past their house in Wetka. Same manicured lawn, same luxury cars in the driveway, same sense that everything was exactly as it should be. Dana was in the front yard planting flowers. And for a moment, I considered stopping. Instead, I kept driving. That evening, I had dinner with Jessica and her husband at their downtown condo. We talked about everything except the obvious until finally she couldn't hold back anymore. "They miss you. They miss the idea of me. The version of me that would have made them comfortable. Maybe. But they're proud of you now. Now that they know the price tag. Is that really what you think?" I looked out at the Chicago skyline. All those lights representing all those lives. All those dreams. I think they love me, but I also think they only respect success they can understand. Building something they couldn't ignore had been worth every difficult conversation.